What up, it's your girl K Dot, and I am here to help. Vincent, sorry I can't pronounce your last name, recommended that I do a summary video of Dante's Inferno, which brings me to the following 2 points. First point, I just would like to take the time to thank everybody who has watched videos, commented on videos, has been helped by videos, has not been helped by videos but still watched it anyways, who have subscribed. Number 2, please, keep doing what Vincent's doing and ask for videos. If there's a book that you want me to summarize and I have read it, then hells yeah, I'll make a video. That's like the whole point. So definitely do that. But now we should get on to Dante's Inferno. Side note, I'm a little biased because Dante's Inferno is probably one of my favorite books. First of all, Dante's Inferno, which is written by Dante Alighieri, is actually one part of 3 different parts. Dante, the character named after the author, has to go through 3 different stages of 3 different books. He has to go through hell, purgatory, and heaven. Why is he doing all this? He's trying to get to Beatrice, who is in heaven, who, side note, is the author's side crush. It never happened, but Dante always had this like long-standing crush on Beatrice, and boom, here in the story shows up Beatrice. Personally, I haven't read Purgatory or Heaven. They're not called that. They're called like Purgatorio and Paradiso or something. But Inferno is just 10 out of 10 would recommend. The reason why it was such a big deal when he wrote it, and even now, Dante was excommunicated after this change of power, and so he basically went from the most renowned author, writer, poet of his time. He got kicked out. They froze his funding. He was left wandering. He was a little bitter. You know when you're angry or upset and you tell somebody to go to hell? Dante is literally telling some of the most powerful people, who are the bishops and the other religious officials, to go to hell. And not even like the nice parts of hell. He's telling them to go to like the worst parts of hell. Anyways, let's get into the book. Open the book, and Dante the character, who's also the author, but sometimes teachers want you to differentiate between Dante the character and Dante the author, so we'll just say Dante the character, is in the middle of his life and he is somehow lost. He tells you that he somehow loses his way and now finds himself in this very dense, scary forest. This part is important. If he's on a path that we know eventually will lead to Beatrice and God, but mostly God and Beatrice, then he has lost his path to God, to salvation. Analysis. So Dante is lost, and he tries to go to this top of this hill to figure out where the hell he is. Where the hell he is, because he's in hell. Well, he's not yet in hell, but it's a funny joke. But then these 3 beasts scare the crap out of him, and he runs back to the bottom of the hill, and he's down there. He's desperate. He has no idea what he's gonna do. He starts crying, I'm pretty sure. He's just hopeless. And at this point, you're probably thinking, dear Dante the author, we're on the 4th page. How are we supposed to get through the rest of the book if Dante the character gets scared at every little moment? And then Dante the author says, never fear, Virgil is here. And Virgil just straight up appears. Now, Virgil is a poet from a long time ago. He wrote the Aeneid. Virgil was celebrated as one of the greatest, poets of his time. He's known for making the modern day epic after the Iliad and Odyssey, which we have covered. He's a heavy hitter, and everyone reading Dante at the time would know about the Roman poet Virgil. And so the fact that he's showing up in your book is just like having a cameo. It's like shooting a movie and Beyonce just rolls up. It's gonna be a bestseller. So Virgil appears, and immediately you start seeing this heavy imagery of Virgil as this father figure, which makes Dante the character, and therefore Dante the author, the son figure of Virgil. So Dante the character sees Virgil appear. Virgil says, "Come with me if you want to live," basically. Dante. And Dante's first point is, okay, well that's great and all, but there's these three like beasts at the top of the mountain, especially the she-wolf, a she-wolf. I'm so scared, Virgil. I'm so scared. I'm so scared. And Virgil's like, cut it out with that. Don't do that anymore. Stop that. And so they go to the top of the hill and the she-beasts are still there, and Virgil waves his hand and the she-beast just like, I don't know, disappear. You can clearly see a pattern of Dante being scared shitless, Virgil making it go away, and then they move on to the next stage. And that's the rest of the book. As they go through hell, they go through different levels. There's 9 levels of hell, and then there's the center. So it ends up in 10 different levels. Before we even get into the levels, there's this whole scene where they have to enter through the gates of hell, and I really need either a TV show, a Netflix series, or a straight up movie production of this scene. Dante and Virgil, who are now the dynamic duo, roll up to the gates of hell, inscribed in what I'm assuming are these badass inscripted letters that are like old and like corroded and things like that. And it's like something, and it says something like super ominous, like abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Like it's just like badass. So they go through the gates, and then we go through the 9 levels of hell. The first level of hell is not a level of hell. So really, we're in hell, but this one isn't that bad. It's called limbo. Here are all the people who lived good lives. They were good people. They just didn't make it to the invention of Christianity. So basically, all of your Roman poets, all your Greek poets, Homer, Ovid, Hippocrates, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, like all those guys are here, and Virgil. This is where Virgil lives. It's pretty nice. They got nice gardens, they got nice flowers, they got a fountain even maybe, like I don't know how it is. It's just they don't get anything else because they were never baptized. But Virgil and Dante roll up, and all these super illustrious authors, Homer, Ovid, Virgil, they are talking to Dante, and they say, Dante, walk with us. And so Dante goes to walk with him. If you think about this, like, Dante the author is writing this about Dante the character, but really this is the equivalent of Dante the author telling all of you, hey everyone, these people are my people. I am this good. Then we get to the second circle of hell, and stuff starts off rough. This level of hell is where all the lustful sinners are punished, the people who give in to their lust. Now it's important to say that as we go into the middle, or in deeper and deeper into hell, things get worse and worse. Dante is making a point that lust is one of the least bad things you could do. It's still a sin. You still get punished for eternity, but it's not as bad as the punishments as we'll see later in the center. Also important to note that Dante has written the Inferno such that the punishment you get in eternity reflects the sin you committed during your mortal life. So here, since these people have given in to the lustful temptations inside of them, in death, they are forever tossed around in the endless physical storm. I don't know what I'm doing with my face. The scenes of the second level of hell, which are child's play compared to what we will see later on, are still too much for Dante, so he flat out faints. So they wind up in the third level of hell, and this is where the gluttons lie. And the gluttons, as punishment, must endure this cold, dirty, harsh rain. It's so all-encompassing that the souls don't even recognize that they're being surrounded by other souls. This punishment represents the fact that in their gluttony, they were so consumed with their own sensuality that they never felt or cared for anyone else. So now they don't feel or care for anyone else, but the feeling they have is crap. Also, guess who makes an appearance? Fluffy. The fourth level of hell, honestly, is my favorite level of hell. Fourth level of hell overall is greed, but you have 2 groups in this level. The first group, they just hoard and hoard money. The second group would spend all their money on physical possessions, but hoard the physical possessions. So when Dante and Virgil enter the scene, these 2 groups are flat out at war with each other. They're pushing these heavy boulders up hills and letting it roll down to go and hit the other people. And they're screaming at each other. One side is screaming, "Why the hell are you spending all of your money on items?" And the other group is, "Why the hell are you saving up all your money?" And they're going to spend eternity fighting over the fact that they're worshiping the same vice. It's just amazing. Next, we're in the 5th circle of hell, which actually is the river Styx, represents anger. And it's similar to the 4th circle in that there's 2 groups here, 2 different kinds of anger. And they're both literally inside of the river. On the top level of the river are those who give into anger through wrath. The water is moving like it's waves almost, but you go closer and you realize it's souls that are fighting each other, like in the water, constantly battling, constantly angrily beating them and making all the water turbulent. Lower below are those who give into anger through sullenness or being sullen, because in life they gave into anger this way and it suck them in. Here, the river pulls them down under for eternity, and they can never be free of it. Also, in terms of social history, there's a scene in this circle of hell where one of the dead souls, I think his name is Argenti, reaches up out of the river Styx and grabs onto Dante, and he says, "Please, save me." Dante looks at him and says, "Hell no," and like kicks him back into the river. And at this point, you start to see that Dante is getting colder. Like, he's not showing as much empathy for these people. The reason why he says it to this guy in particular is because when Dante, the author, was kicked out of Florence, this guy got all of his wealth because his assets were frozen and they were just up for free grabs. And this guy said, "I'll take them." And so now here, Dante, the author, is writing about this guy suffering this eternal hell. It's really just a big F you. The 6th circle of hell is for the heretics. These are the people who say blasphemous things like the soul dies with the body, which was a big part of the Epicureans, and other things. For the next 3 circles, there's a lot of circles or sub-levels, we'll call them, which isn't really fair. Dante, you really could have separated them, but I guess he needed to be a tight 10, so he just kind of pushed these together, but we'll get through them. Stick with me. 7th circle of hell is the circle of violence, which is my least favorite circle of hell. So there's 3 sub-levels. The outer sub-level, middle sub-level, and the inner sub-level, right? I think they call them rings instead, so I'll call them that. It's better. The outer ring, fine. People who are violent against other people or other people's properties. Here, as their punishment, they are submerged in a river of boiling blood. Uncomfortable. Attila the Hun makes an appearance. Very historical. The middle ring, I'm going to be straight up honest, gave me nightmares. This is people who are violent towards themselves, aka suicide. The imagery was just so strong, so powerful. Maybe you want to skip this one. I'll put a link here, but if not, let's just get into it. So the idea behind this is that those who committed suicide in life didn't value the body that God put their soul into, and they destroyed it. So in death, they're put back into a body, but not a, human body. They're put back into a tree, which is even worse than a body because it can't move. It's rooted to the ground, but it still feels. So you see all of these, leaning and ripped apart trees. All of a sudden these harpies fly in, which are the equivalent of furies, if you've heard me talk about them. And the harpies come in and start ripping the bark off the trees. And you hear just this screaming of the souls that are trapped inside the trees as the harpies rip their wooden flesh off of their body. Also in the scene are the profligates, which are people who basically committed suicide because they didn't spend their living means well. They are chased by these rabid dogs, which eventually catch them, rip out their innards, chew on the innards, and leave them bleeding on the ground, and then their body like sews itself back together so that they can go run away from the dogs again. It's just all very, very gruesome. The inner ring are the people who are violent against God and violent against nature. Violence against God are the blasphemers, those who didn't show enough respect for God. The violence against nature, two groups, the sodomites and the usurers, the people who charged interest on money because that's so terrible. Wall Street. So here there is this desert sand which is boiling hot, and the blasphemers have to lay on the sand, so like full body contact with this burning sand. The usurers have to sit on the sand, so not as much burning, so I guess not as bad as blasphemy. And the sodomites have to walk around in groups on the sand, so it's only touching their soles of their feet, of their ghost feet. And so those are the three rings that all collectively fit in the seventh circle of hell. The eighth circle of hell is not fair, because the eighth circle of hell has like 10 rings in it, which is just bizarre how many ways you can represent fraud. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's the first level, which has mild fraud, which is like seduction and panderers and things like that. And then on the other opposite end, there's alchemists and people who purposely divide unity, so they purposely create schisms. There's corrupt politicians, there's thieves, there's flatterers. It's interesting because there's a whole section on evil and fraudulent counselors, and Odysseus makes an appearance because he came up with the idea of the Trojan horse. Even though it won them the battle, according to Dante, that's a straight up sin. What's also not fair is not only are these 10 different rings within the 8th circle of hell, but on each ring there's a different punishment that's super different from the rest. Some of them have to wear super heavy leaden capes that drag them down. Some of them are hacked into bits. Some of them are engulfed in flames. Like, it's crazy at this point that Dante must have been on something when he was writing this section. The 9th circle of hell has 4 rings, but each of these are a different level of treachery. That's the sin here. And it's interesting because as we're getting closer and closer to the center of hell, this is where you really start to see that it's not getting hotter. It's getting colder. So there's 4 different rings which correspond to 4 different levels of treachery. The first one is betrayal of family. The second is betrayal of community ties. The third is betrayal of guests, because guests are always important. And then the fourth is betrayal of your lords. And as you get to the 4th level, it gets progressively and progressively colder, to the point that at the 4th level, everything is encapsulated in ice. Just imagine, if everything's encapsulated in ice, then it's utter silence. But those souls are still experiencing eternal silence. Unless, of course, you're in the center of hell. Because when you're in the center of hell, you're in the center of punishment. And who deserves the center of punishment in the center of hell? Why, that would be Satan. He is waist deep in this ice cold water. He has wings which are flapping because he's trying to escape, but he's chained to the ground, and the wind of his wings is what's causing all of this ice. This version of Satan has 3 heads, and within the mouths of each head are 3 of the worst people. The first 2 in the left and right head are Brutus and the other guy who both conspired to kill Julius Caesar, because according to Dante, these guys are just the worst. They basically led to the fall of Rome because of what they did. And in the middle, the guy who everybody hates the most because of what he did is Judas. He is not only being like chewed alive in this middle mouth of Satan, he's also being like clawed like on his body. Like, his suffering is terrible. Coincidentally, in order to get out of hell, you have to climb up Satan like he's some kind of like ladder. So they're climbing up Satan and they get like halfway and gravity just inverts. And Dante starts freaking out because he says, oh no, we're crawling back into hell. And Virgil says, you need to chill because we have a whole nother book and I'm gonna need this to stop right now. Dante takes a chill pill and they keep climbing, and finally they emerge on the other hemisphere of life. In the last little 3 lines, Dante looks up and he sees stars. And this is important because Dante, the author, finishes each of the books, each of the 3 books, with the same scene of Dante looking up and seeing stars. In fact, the word stars ends every single book, and I think that's just really poetic. And that's the end. I hope this was helpful, and that's it. Deuces.